In the ancient land of Ithaca, where the mountains met the sea and the olive trees swayed gently in the wind, there lived a king named Odysseus. He was strong, clever, and brave, a man of wisdom and courage, respected by his people. Yet, behind the armor and heroic tales, he carried a heart full of love for his family, especially for his wife, Penelope. Penelope was a queen admired not only for her beauty, but for her grace, intelligence, and unwavering loyalty. Her hair shimmered like the golden sunlight over the waves, and her eyes held a quiet strength that could calm storms of worry or grief. To the people of Ithaca, she was a symbol of patience and virtue, but to Odysseus, she was the soul that completed his own, the companion who understood his thoughts without the need for words. The story begins at the moment of departure. War had broken out in distant lands, and the king was called to lead his men into battle. The night before leaving, Odysseus and Penelope walked along the cliffs overlooking the sea. The moonlight reflected on the water, and the gentle waves whispered a soft farewell. "My heart," Odysseus said, holding Penelope's hands tightly. "I must go. The war calls, and I cannot ignore the duty that binds me. But no matter how far I travel, my mind and soul will remain with you." Penelope's eyes glistened with unshed tears. She nodded, but her voice trembled as she spoke. "I understand, my love, but promise me you will return. Promise me that no storm, no enemy, no temptation will keep you from coming home." Odysseus smiled, though it tinged with sadness. "I swear it, Penelope. By the gods and by my heart, I will return. You must wait for me, as I will wait for the day I can hold you again." That night, the palace of Ithaca was quiet, but heavy with the weight of impending separation. Servants and family members tried to lift spirits with laughter and music, but Penelope could not shake the ache of anticipation. She knew the dangers that awaited her husband: storms at sea, battles on land, and the unpredictable cruelty of fate. And yet, she also knew that love required patience and trust. She would guard her heart, for Odysseus's return was her beacon through the darkness. The following morning, Odysseus gathered his warriors and boarded the ships that would carry them across the wine-dark sea. Penelope stood on the shore, wrapped in a shawl, as she watched him disappear beyond the horizon. Each wave seemed to echo her sorrow, and each gust of wind felt like a whisper of longing. She clutched the pendant she had given her, a simple piece of carved wood shaped like a ship, a symbol of their connection. As Odysseus sailed away, he looked back, seeing Penelope's figure growing smaller in the distance. He held on to the hope that their love would withstand time, distance, and the unknown perils ahead. His heart ached with longing, but he knew that a hero's journey often demanded sacrifice. And this was the beginning of a journey that would test not only his courage, but the strength of the bond he shared with Penelope. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Letters were rare, messages uncertain. In Ithaca, Penelope maintained her duties as queen with dignity and composure, yet each day was shadowed by worry. She greeted visitors, resolved disputes, and managed the kingdom's affairs, all while keeping her hope alive. Her nights, however, were the hardest. Alone in her chamber, she would gaze at the moon and whisper prayers to the gods, asking for her husband's safe return. Meanwhile, Odysseus faced trials beyond imagination. The seas were treacherous, filled with violent storms and uncharted waters. His men grew weary, and the enemy was relentless. Yet through every challenge, he thought of Penelope, the quiet strength she embodied, the warmth of her presence, and the unwavering love that awaited him. These thoughts became a guiding light, a force that urged him to persevere despite the hardships. Along the way, Odysseus encountered challenges that tested not only his skill but his character. On one island, his crew faced a giant who seemed invincible. On another, mystical beings tried to lure them into eternal traps. Through every danger, Odysseus relied on cunning, bravery, and his unshakable desire to return home. He would often sit by the dim light of a fire, staring at the night sky, imagining Penelope waiting for him. Each star became a symbol of hope, each distant land a reminder of the home that called him back. Back in Ithaca, rumors began to circulate. Some visitors whispered that Odysseus might never return. Suitors, ambitious and greedy, began to gather, hoping to claim Penelope as their own. Yet she faced them with dignity, cleverness, and a subtle defiance that only strengthened the legend of her loyalty. She devised ways to delay choosing a new husband, using her wit to protect her heart. Every day she wove a shroud for her father-in-law, secretly unraveling it each night, a quiet rebellion and a promise to remain true until Odysseus came back. In the quiet moments, Penelope allowed herself to imagine his return. She pictured the day he would step back into the palace, weary but alive, and she would run into his arms. These thoughts, though bittersweet, kept her anchored, a reminder that love could endure even when separated by years, battles, and uncertainty. And this was only the beginning, for the challenges that awaited both of them were far greater than a single farewell. The days following Odysseus's departure stretched into weeks, and the weeks into months. The kingdom of Ithaca felt the absence of its king as a shadow over the sunlit hills. Penelope moved through the palace with calm dignity, greeting guests and tending to her duties, but the quiet of the halls reminded her at every moment that Odysseus was far away, facing dangers she could scarcely imagine. In the meantime, Odysseus and his men sailed across the vast, unpredictable Mediterranean. Each day brought new challenges, and each night left them weary from the perils of the sea. Storms struck without warning, waves towered like mountains, and the wind screamed with a voice that seemed almost human, as if the gods themselves were testing the courage of the sailors. Odysseus, though strong and clever, felt the weight of the journey pressing against his heart. Yet in the darkest hours, thoughts of Penelope anchored him, a guiding light through the chaos. One evening, after a particularly violent storm had thrown their ships off course, Odysseus sat on the deck, staring at the endless horizon. His crew murmured about despair and home, but he held his composure. "We must endure," he said, his voice steady despite exhaustion. "No wave, no wind, no beast can separate us from what we hold in our hearts." Meanwhile, back in Ithaca, the palace was beginning to change in ways that tested Penelope's resolve. Word had spread that Odysseus might not return soon, or worse, might never return at all. Suitors arrived from far and wide, bringing gifts and flattery, all hoping to win the hand of the queen and the throne of Ithaca. Some were arrogant, some cunning, but all underestimated the quiet intelligence and strength of Penelope. She met them with a grace that hid her sorrow and a mind sharper than any sword. "I cannot choose a husband while my heart belongs to my absent husband," she would say gently, yet firmly. And when pressed further, she devised clever schemes to delay their demands. Among her most famous tactics was the weaving of the great shroud for her father-in-law, Laertes. Every day she worked diligently at the loom, weaving threads into intricate patterns. But every night, under the cover of darkness, she unraveled her work, a secret rebellion against the pressure to remarry. Each undone thread was a symbol of her fidelity, a silent message to the man she loved that she would wait, no matter how long it took. The months turned into years, And still, Odysseus was caught in a chain of trials beyond imagination. On one island, he and his men faced a race of giants whose strength was unmatched. Odysseus, using both cunning and courage, led his men to safety, relying on clever tricks rather than brute force. On another shore, mystical beings lured them with enchantments and illusions, promising comfort and riches, yet threatening to trap them forever. Each time, Odysseus's thoughts of Penelope gave him the strength to resist. Her image, her voice, and the memory of their last embrace were shields more powerful than any armor. Even the gods seemed to have a hand in Odysseus's trials. Some, like Athena, watched over him, whispering guidance and offering subtle assistance. Others, like Poseidon, tested his endurance, sending storms and obstacles to see if he could survive. Through it all, Odysseus learned patience, humility, and resilience, not only for himself, but for the love waiting for him back home. Back in Ithaca, Penelope's nights were filled with quiet longing. She walked the halls of the palace, often pausing to gaze out at the distant horizon, imagining the sea where Odysseus sailed. The wind seemed to carry faint echoes of his voice, though she knew it was only her hope speaking. Letters from distant lands were rare, and news of Odysseus's fate arrived only in fragments. Friends whispered stories of battles won and lost, of islands where he had been seen, yet none could confirm his safety. Still, Penelope clung to each tidbit with cautious optimism, refusing to surrender to despair. The suitors grew impatient, their numbers swelling, their arrogance emboldened by Penelope's silence. But she met each intrusion with clever resistance. She challenged them with tasks that seemed impossible, promising to consider marriage only once she had completed her loom, a task she secretly delayed night after night. She also appealed to their sense of honor, weaving stories of her undying loyalty, quietly shaming those who would try to take what was not theirs. In her solitude, Penelope found moments of quiet reflection. She remembered the first time she met Odysseus, the way he smiled with both strength and warmth, the cleverness in his eyes, and the kindness in his heart. Memories of shared laughter, gentle conversations by the hearth, and stolen moments of intimacy reminded her why waiting was worth every pang of loneliness. She prayed not only for his safe return, but for the strength to endure, knowing that love tested by time becomes more profound, more enduring. Odysseus, thousands of miles away, faced moments of desperation. Hunger, fatigue, and despair threatened to break him. His men grew weary and fearful, questioning the journey and their leader's wisdom. But Odysseus never wavered. Every trial we endure brings us closer to home. Every storm we survive is a step toward the hearts that await us. Remember why we sail: for love, for family, for the life that is worth every hardship. In the dark of night, when the stars reflected on the endless ocean, Odysseus would close his eyes and envision Ithaca. He saw Penelope walking along the cliffs, the wind catching her hair, her eyes searching the horizon for him. He felt her patience and her courage as if they were tangible, holding him together when the waves threatened to pull him apart. This vision became a source of endurance, a beacon guiding him through storms, islands of danger, and temptations that would have broken a lesser man. Thus the years wore on, with Odysseus battling the world beyond the sea, and Penelope battling the world within her walls. Both faced immense trials, yet their hearts remained bound by a love stronger than distance, stronger than time, and stronger than the perils that surrounded them. In this way, their story became a legend, not only of heroism and adventure, but of the quiet, steadfast power of love that waits, endures, and never fades.
After 20 long years, Odysseus's journey neared its end, yet the road to Ithaca was still fraught with danger and uncertainty. He had faced monsters, tempests and treacherous lands, but the thought of home and of Penelope kept him moving forward. Every wave he braved, every enemy he outwitted, every temptation he resisted was fueled by a singular hope: to return to the woman who had patiently waited for him, whose love had endured time, distance, and hardship. Odysseus arrived at the shores of distant islands where he had once set foot, seeking knowledge and guidance from old friends and mysterious seers. Each encounter reminded him of how much he had changed, and yet how much remained the same. He had grown in wisdom, courage, and patience, but the longing for Penelope remained the constant anchor of his soul. One night, gazing at the stars, he whispered a prayer to the gods. "Let me return safely," he said, "and find the queen whose heart has never wavered. Let my trials end, and let the love that guided me never be broken." Meanwhile, in Ithaca, Penelope's life had become a delicate balancing act between hope and strategy. The suitors had grown bolder with each passing year, pressuring her to choose one of them. Some came with arrogance, believing that time had softened her resolve. Others tried to use flattery or deceit, but Penelope, ever clever, had learned to turn every attempt into a test of their character and a testament to her enduring loyalty. One of her most famous strategies was the weaving of the Great Shroud. She promised that she would choose a suitor only after completing it. But each night, in secret, she unraveled her work, refusing to submit to the pressure of choosing someone else's favor over the love that filled her heart. This act was more than cleverness. It was devotion. Each undone thread was a quiet affirmation. She would remain faithful, no matter the years, no matter the hardships. Despite the passing years, Penelope's heart never wavered. She often walked along the cliffs overlooking the sea, imagining Odysseus returning from the horizon, his ship breaking through the waves, and his eyes searching for her. The wind that brushed her face seemed to whisper his voice, calling her to wait just a little longer. She drew strength from her memories, the warmth of his smile, the cleverness in his mind, the gentleness in his embrace. These memories were her fortress against despair. As the suitors grew impatient, Penelope devised yet another test to delay them. She announced that she would marry only the man who could string Odysseus's great bow and shoot an arrow through 12 axe heads in a single attempt. The task seemed impossible, designed to protect her heart while showcasing the suitor's limitations. Some tried and failed, others gave up in frustration. Through it all, Penelope watched quietly, her calm demeanor hiding the hope and anticipation that stirred in her heart. Odysseus, now disguised as a humble wanderer thanks to Athena's guidance, finally reached the shores of Ithaca. He arrived in secret, taking in the familiar landscapes that had been burned into his memory for 2 decades. The hills, the olive groves, and the coastline that framed the home he had longed for every day of his life. Yet even in this moment of near reunion, he was cautious. The palace was crowded with suitors, each unaware that the king they mocked and underestimated was walking among them. With careful steps and a clever disguise, Odysseus made his way into the palace. He observed the suitors, noting their arrogance and selfishness. He watched Penelope, who remained as graceful and wise as ever, managing the household with dignity while subtly keeping her heart and mind intact. He saw her cleverness in her interactions with the men, her wit shining through even in the face of their persistence, and his heart swelled with admiration and love. She had endured years of uncertainty, loneliness, and pressure, and yet she had remained steadfast. The moment of testing arrived. Penelope presented the bow and the challenge of the axe heads. None of the suitors could succeed. They struggled, laughed, or became frustrated, revealing their true characters. Odysseus, still in disguise, observed quietly. He knew that the time had come to act, yet he would wait for the perfect moment, testing not only their strength, but the loyalty of the woman he loved. Penelope, unaware of the true identity of the stranger among them, continued to watch with patience and wisdom. She had learned to read people, to see the difference between those who acted out of selfish desire and those whose hearts were true. And though she did not yet recognize Odysseus in his disguise, there was a quiet sense of anticipation in her soul, a feeling that the trials, the waiting, and the years of loyalty were about to come to fruition. As Odysseus prepared to reveal himself, the palace seemed to hold its breath. The tension between the suitors, the queen, and the disguised king reached a delicate balance. The threads of patience, loyalty, and love that had been woven over 20 years were about to be tested in a moment that would determine the fate of Ithaca and the hearts that had been separated for so long. Through the halls and the court, one truth remained clear. No matter how clever the tests, no matter how strong the enemies, or no matter how long the waiting, the love between Odysseus and Penelope had endured. It had grown stronger through hardship, more profound through separation, and more beautiful through patience. And soon the world would witness the reunion of two hearts that had been faithful to each other, proving that true love, no matter the distance or the trials, can survive and triumph.
The hall of Ithaca's palace was thick with tension. The suitors had gathered, their confidence fading with each failed attempt to string Odysseus's great bow and shoot an arrow through 12 axe heads. Whispers of frustration filled the air. Yet, at the center, Penelope remained calm, her eyes steady, her mind sharp, and her heart guarded. She did not yet know that the stranger who had quietly observed the proceedings, the one who had walked among them unnoticed, was her husband, returned at last from the long and perilous journey. Odysseus, still in disguise, stepped forward when the final suitor faltered. His hands, hardened by years of war and adventure, gripped the bow. The room fell silent. With one smooth motion, he strung the bow with ease, drawing the string back with strength and precision that only a master could possess. The arrow sailed straight through all 12 axe heads in a single, flawless shot. A hush swept through the hall, and even the suitors froze, recognizing the impossible skill of the archer before them. At that moment, Odysseus revealed his true identity. Removing his disguise, he stood tall and commanding, yet there was a softness in his eyes, a mixture of relief, love, and longing. I am Odysseus, the king of Ithaca, the man who left these shores many years ago, but whose heart has never strayed from this palace, from this queen. Penelope's eyes widened, a mix of disbelief and overwhelming joy flooding her. She took a cautious step forward, her breath catching as the realization struck her. For 20 years, she had waited, endured, and remained faithful. For 20 years, she had resisted despair and temptation, weaving and unweaving her shroud, maintaining her clever defenses against the suitors. And now, in the flesh before her, was the man she had longed for every day, the man she had never stopped loving. Odysseus closed the distance between them. Words were unnecessary. Their eyes met, and in that gaze was a lifetime of longing, sorrow, hope, and undying love. Penelope, with tears streaming down her cheeks, reached for his hand, feeling the familiar strength she had missed for so long. He embraced her gently, savoring the moment, knowing that their separation, with all its trials, had only deepened the bond between them. The suitors, realizing their arrogance and greed had led them to failure, faced the wrath of the king. Odysseus, guided by justice and the rightful authority of his home, confronted them. The hall echoed with the consequences of their years of disrespect, their attempts to claim what did not belong to them. Each suitor faced the outcome of his choices, leaving the palace to peace and order once more. Through it all, Penelope remained at Odysseus's side, her wisdom and courage having played a crucial role in protecting her home and her heart. Once the danger had passed, the palace settled into a calm it had not known for years. Odysseus and Penelope were finally able to be together, without fear, without interruption, and without the shadow of the suitors looming over them. Their conversations were long and heartfelt. They spoke of the years apart, of the challenges they had faced, and of the unwavering love that had carried them through. Odysseus recounted his journey, the storms, the monsters, and the mystical beings, always emphasizing that his thoughts had never left Ithaca, never left her. Penelope shared her own trials, describing the suitors, the weaving of the shroud, and the quiet moments of doubt that she had overcome. They laughed softly, remembering the clever ways she had delayed her suitors and the subtle defiance that had protected her heart. Every story they told, every memory they shared, reinforced the truth that their love was stronger than time, distance, or hardship. The reunion of Odysseus and Penelope became a symbol not only for their family but for the people of Ithaca. Their story was one of patience and loyalty, of enduring love tested by the harshest of circumstances. It showed that true devotion cannot be shaken by absence or danger, and that the heart that remains faithful will be rewarded. In the days that followed, Odysseus resumed his role as king, but he did so with a renewed understanding of love and home. He walked the halls of his palace with Penelope beside him, each step a reminder that their shared patience and courage had brought them back together. The people of Ithaca admired their bond, inspired by the quiet strength and unwavering fidelity that defined the queen and her king. In quiet moments, Odysseus and Penelope would walk together along the cliffs where they had said farewell so many years ago. The sea whispered beneath them, waves reflecting the moonlight, carrying echoes of the past, yet promising a future of peace and unity. Their hands intertwined, hearts aligned, they knew that no matter what trials life might still present, their love had endured and triumphed. 20 years of waiting, enduring, and remaining steadfast had led to this moment. The story of Odysseus and Penelope, once a tale of longing and separation, had become a legend of reunion, resilience, and the enduring power of love. Through patience, cleverness, courage, and fidelity, they proved that love could withstand the test of time, and that the heart that remains true will never be left behind. And so, in the golden light of Ithaca, with the waves singing softly in the distance, Odysseus and Penelope finally embraced the life they had dreamed of, together at last. Proof that love, above all, is eternal.